Well, here we are. Today is Thursday, December 29th, 2022. We're heading into New Year's weekend, and I'm doing this a day early this week because I'm leaving for New Hampshire tomorrow, and I'm going to be on the road, and I don't know what delays may happen, and we're going up to New Hampshire to the place up there to spend some time with my grandchildren, and some of my kids are up there. They're going to go do some skiing, and we're going to spend New Year's up there, so it'll be really great. I'm looking forward to it. But I wanted to get this off so that there wouldn't be any mess-ups. The newsletter page will be updated by tomorrow, probably in the afternoon sometime. When I get there, we'll run the updates through and take care of that. But I wanted to get this video done so that I'm not worrying about it, because I try to stick to my schedule, but this time around we're going to have to do it a day early, so we did. Now, there's not a lot going on right now out there. The live auctioneers on the global pages are all updated. The invaluable pages are updated, whatever's going on. But there are a number of sales coming up at Sotheby's and Christie's that you may not be aware of, that have some very, very interesting things in them, and the prices are not astronomical. These are some of them are in the Americana sales that are coming up in New York. As you know, Americana Week happens around the 20th of the month. And there's another sale taking place in England that we're going to start with. It's very interesting, and it's this one. This is called Royal and Noble. I don't know if you've seen these sales before, but these are objects that come out of sort of prominent families over in Europe. In this case, it's a family, the Licata family from Portugal and the Berkeley family from England. And both of these sales have some pretty great things in them. And the prices are not crazy. And you might want to look into it. It's a very fascinating peek into what you might find in some of these old houses. One of them is Spetchley Park, which is the famous house in the UK where Winston Churchill was supposed to have his headquarters during World War II. And the place ended up actually being used as a camp for soldiers. And they set up tents and so forth on the property during the war, staging areas and equipment and whatnot. And they sort of lent the entire estate to the government for the war effort. And then the Licata family, which is a very prominent Portuguese family. So we're going to go through it. Most of the material, the Chinese stuff, is coming from the Licata family, but they have an interesting historic family. And this is just some of the material. And one of the things that you'll notice right away is that the estimates are fairly reasonable throughout, a couple of $1,000s. So there are even pieces in here in the hundreds. All right, but there's also a lot of very interesting Chinese material that is going to be shown. So stick around for that. All right, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right. The first one is this very nice Qianlong period teapot, coffee pot, blue and white decoration, serpent handles. Sort of like a serpent handle, I guess you'd call it, with a serpent spout. Nice underglazed blue decoration, very delicately painted, very softly painted. The cobalt on this is very, very soft and light, but nicely detailed all the way to the top. This pot measures around 13 inches tall. It's worth checking out if you're a Chinese export buyer. Estimated at just 2,000 to 3,000 pounds, which I think is pretty reasonable. All the estimates, I think, are reasonable. And this is one of the prettiest things in the sale, I think. It's a Ryukyu Island lacquer. This was something that the Japanese were famous for. This is a pretty good-sized box. It's about 3 feet long and about 2 feet tall, but beautifully lacquered. And it's got nice bits of wear on it, too. I think that adds a lot to the character of it. Metal mounts on the corners to hold it together and so forth. But nice details, very nice details. And striking, the color is striking. Here's a picture of the back of it. They're often left undecorated when they did the backs of these because they were meant to be up against a wall. So you're not going to look at the back, so they didn't bother decorating it. So you only have the 3 strap hinges running down the back side of it. But the estimate, 500 to 800 pounds. Very, very nice deal. This came from the Berkeley family at Spetchley Park. There's a little bit of a write-up on it. Let's see. They're not sure when they got it, but it was acquired by Thomas Berkeley of Ravenshill during his lifetime, or his son, who died in 1741. So you know it's been around there for a long time. They're not quite sure which of the family members bought it, whether it was Thomas or John, but that's the history that they do have on it. Nice looking box, very reasonably estimated, ridiculous. And then this, a pair of fluted bow pots, Kangxi period, beautifully enameled. They are different, they're not a pair, but they're very similar in shape. They complement one another nicely. There's a bit of fritting on the rims, but it's a rare form. This is a pretty rare form of the bow pots in this type, in this style. Estimated at 1,500 to 2,500 pounds, and this came from the De Licata family over in Portugal. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful colors, and this is sort of the flavor of the stuff that they have. All right, and then this, the Kakiemon dish, Edo period, late 17th century. It's about 7 inches in diameter. It came from it's the property of His Grace, the Duke of Montrose. There it is, 7 3/4 inches in diameter. In this design, as many of you know, it was used by the Meissen factory. It was copied by Meissen. But very nice decoration, good details on it. Doesn't look to have any damage. The enamels aren't chipping. Oh, there's one hairline in it. There it is. Okay, there's a hairline in it. But the estimate isn't crazy. The estimate is 700 to 900 pounds. So you can if you're a Kakiemon buyer, you might want to look at that. And then this is maybe one of the most interesting things, historic things that has come up in a while. It just caught my eye. I just absolutely love this thing. This is an engraved pewter box that contains soil from the grave of St. Francis Xavier's tomb. It was made in the 18th century. It is big. This thing is a big piece of pewter, 41 centimeters tall. So it's about 16 inches in height, made from pewter. It was ordered by the family. I guess it was produced. And the history of this fellow, he was a missionary, St. Francis Xavier, spent a lot of time in India. I don't know if you follow any of this, but he was a 16th century missionary. He spent a lot of time in India and Southeast Asia. He went to Japan. He died in China. And someone ordered this be made. And what's interesting is that he was buried, and then he was dug up and he was moved and reburied several times during the period following his death. And the church kept moving around. He was a very high-ranking member of the Catholic Church. There's an extensive write-up on him in Wikipedia. I checked before we did the video, and there's loads of information on him and his life in China and so forth. And I think as a historic artifact, this is a pretty great thing, and it's big. It's much bigger than it looks. It looks like it's 4 or 5 inches tall. It's much larger than that. It's like it's vase size, and I think that would be a fantastic thing. Estimated at 4,000 to 6,000 pounds. I wouldn't be surprised if this did a lot better than that, because you have people who collect Christian art and so forth that was produced in China in the 18th century. The Peabody Museum even did an exhibition on this topic about 10 or 15 years ago. On Christianity and Christian relics that were made by Chinese workers, and this was done during the 18th century during the reign of Qianlong. So I think that's a pretty interesting object. Like I said, if you're interested in unusual but rare things, this is an unusual and rare thing, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it sell for 20 or 30,000. And then the Ming Dynasty 16th century vase, nice looking little Mei Ping vase, very soft color palette. The color palette on this is unusually soft, but nicely decorated. It measures around, about 8 inches or so tall, as I recall, something like that. 8 inches on the, 8 inches tall, 20 centimeters. Estimated at just 1,200 to 1,500 pounds, and this came from the De Licata family. Another thing worth looking at. And then another Ming piece from the De Licata family, was this export bowl, late Ming, for the Islamic market. Those of you out there that are interested in this topic, in the China trade and the interactions between China and the Middle East, this is a bowl that was made for the Middle Eastern market. estimated at just $2,000 to $3,000. It is 22 centimeters wide, so it's about 9 inches in diameter. So it's a good sized bowl with a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. It looks like it's in nice condition. Has a couple of little rubbing spots on the rim that you can even just see without enlarging it. There it is. There's a couple of spots, but other than that, it looks like it's in fine shape. It looks very good. And over to this, the Kangxi bottle vase. Again, the family seemed to like. This is also from the Delicata family. Very nicely decorated with precious objects in the lower section, and then up the neck you have this underglazed blue area, and this is that reversing white. So they would outline it in blue, and it would allow the white glaze underneath to come through and create the flowers. It's very delicately painted, garlic neck, and then the rim. It has a couple of little chips out of it, but other than that, it looks pretty good. And it measures, how tall is this? 12 inches tall, with a 2,000 to 3,000 pound estimate. And you got to keep in mind, when they have 2,000 to 3,000 pound estimates, the chances are the reserve might be just 1,000. So don't be afraid to leave some bids. You may pick up a bargain in this sale, especially if you're over in the UK and you don't have to arrange to get shipping. And then this, a pair of Burley House dishes. These are a pair of these are illustrated in the famous Burley House book, which is a famous English manor house filled with Chinese and Japanese art. And the family, as I recall, I think it was the current descendant about 30 years ago, decided to do an inventory and do a book on the porcelain collection. She got interested in the subject and did it. It was a great contribution to scholarship on objects that found their way into the UK. And here you have a couple of these plates, and they are known now as Burley House dishes. There's a picture of I believe that's the castle itself on there. That is Burley House. I believe that is why they're called that. And nicely decorated. Estimated at just 1,500 to 2,500 pounds for the pair. All right, and then over to this. These are unusual. These are Kangxi period, but the bowls are done in a style that was actually more popular during the late Qing dynasty than during the Kangxi period. These are fairly rare. This is a pretty rare combination, and they have their under trays, which is unheard of. They're very, very nice. The decoration, the cobalt is strong, vibrant, perfectly painted, and they go together. So you have all four. You have the two under trays and two bowls with their covers still with them, which makes them very desirable. This makes them really desirable because they don't often have all that. Let's see, they are 14 centimeters tall, or about just a little under 6 inches in height, and or 27 centimeters high, depending. 27. Let's see, with the stand, 27 centimeters. You got to check that. I think they've got a mistake here. It says that they're 14 centimeters high overall. The stand, 27 centimeters high. So I'm not quite sure what that means. I think they mean to say 27 centimeters in diameter. I suspect about a foot wide. So you want to get some clarification on that, because if they are 27, if they're a foot wide each, these are big pieces. These are big pieces, and that estimate is very low. So we'll see. All right, and then the Shunxi Kangxi period jar, a well-known type with the kids all over it. There's a better picture of it, but very strongly painted. Very strong red, very strong blues in this. Really contrasts against the white ground with its lid, which makes it quite unusual because most of these, the lids are long gone, as you know. When you look at these, they often don't have their lids any longer. But this is the boys' pattern with the maidens in the garden. You have the balustrade running around them and so forth. Nice looking pair of jars. Wutsai decoration, estimated at just 5,000 to 7,000 pounds, and measures 41 centimeters tall. So this is a pretty big jar, 16 or so inches in height. Very attractive though, isn't it pretty? And there's this. This is a two jars. It's not a pair per se. Let me get back up to the top here. I was looking at this before I started recording. There they are. They're complementary. They have a couple of hairlines. It says in the description there's a little touching up that took place on the lids to the enamels, but they're very close to a pair. But there are slight differences if you look at them a little bit carefully. They have the similar body decoration with the hanging chimes and then these sort of cash symbols and window openings carved into, painted onto them. Again, a very soft blue. But the upper border with the acanthus leaves, multicolors, and then over here you have crashing waves and precious objects. That's the difference. And then at the bottom, they have slightly different but similar border decorations around the base. But these are good size. They're about 16 inches tall. Like I said, they have one of them. They mentioned something about a hairline and some repainting to one of the lids, but other than that, they're fine. The estimate is very reasonable, 4,000 to 6,000 pounds. And they estimate, let's see, how tall are these? These are big, 38 centimeters in height, so they're about 15 inches, 16 inches tall. But they're pricing them in at around $2,000 to $3,000 a piece, which is very, very reasonable. So if you look, and it's not a true pair, but it's close to a true pair. And this is again another interesting lot, the cornerless pronk dom parasol dishes. You've seen these before. You see most of the time you see the one on the right in red, and they also reproduce these in Japan. So you want to be a little bit careful when you see that pattern with this orange border, because they did make Japanese examples as well, and they often get confused. And on the left is one that's done more typically in a Yongchen palette with that very strong red. And then again, you have the parasol ladies because he lived at the end of the Yongchen period. Cornelis Pronk was a decorator, designer who lived in the Netherlands, and the VOC took orders using his patterns on porcelain. And at the time, his porcelain was fabulously expensive. As I mentioned before, a vase with his pattern on it sold for about the price of a house. At the time, back then, and they don't anymore, of course, but and that may be why his period of decorating was so short-lived, which makes these rare, because he only did them for a year or a year and a half before he stopped decorating. But these are estimated at 2,000 to 3,000 pounds for the pair, and you get two samples, which I think is pretty great. They're both interesting in their own way. They're very similar in their own way, but they're very, very different, obviously. All right, and then over to this, the Immortals Bowl, Qing Dynasty. It's got a Xindi Tang G mark on the bottom, which just means that made for the Hall of Prudent Virtue. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. I couldn't get over how dirty this bowl is, and they took a picture of it anyway. It looks like it came out of a box in the basement, but beautifully done. And the enamels on this, the enameling on this is very, very fine. When you take a moment to look at it, it's very good decoration. Probably Daoguan period. I'm just guessing. They didn't say themselves anything more than just 19th century. But it's to my eye, the decoration looks like it's maybe Daoguan to Kangxi period, somewhere in there. Maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later. Hard to say. The bowl is about 8 inches in diameter. Beautifully decorated, in nice condition, filthy dirty from what I can see. It's absolutely filthy. 4,000 to 6,000 pound estimate. It came from the Licata sale, the Delicata family, but it's a gem of a porcelain. It's just a gem of an object. And this is coming up now. This isn't in the Noble sale. This is in the Joseph Kindig collection of important Americana that's going to take place around the 20th. So you want to look it up. It's at Sotheby's. Joseph Kindig was a premier American collector and dealer. Handled great things, the best, the very best. And this is something out of his own collection. Is this beautiful English market China trade hunt bowl, but fabulously well decorated. And when you look at this, take a good look at the horse's fur here. That it's all completely painted, one hair at a time, onto these animals. The brushwork on this thing is fantastic when you just stop for a second and look at the details of how they depicted the horses. All right, and the figures as well, the robe, their clothing, the folds in their clothing, the facial expressions, and so forth. Just a really very fine hunt bowl. Just $4,000 to $6,000 dollars rather. I think it'll do better than that. It's a pretty rare bird, and it looks like it's in great condition. Let's see how this looks. Yeah, look at those enamel. All the green enamels are in beautiful shape, and they used a couple of shades of green to punctuate it. Very nicely done. Here's an attendant with a horse. I like this. This is a nice hunt bowl. This is a nice English market hunt bowl. And they said it's Jing period, so it was made between 1800 and 1810. All right, and then over here to Sotheby's. This is a look at all the stuff that's in the sale that we just looked at. If you go to the page for the auction, and you just type in Chinese, you'll pull up all of these immediately. And there's more in here than I showed. I didn't show all the Chinese stuff. There's quite a bit more, as you can see. All right, so you want to go over and sort of peruse all of it. All right, but this is just some of the pieces that are in there, worth looking at. And then over here to important Americana. This is at Christie's. All right, and again, they've got some fantastic pieces of American furniture. If you're interested in furniture, take a look at it. Just some great bonnet top Chippendale highboys, some Queen Anne furniture, flat top Queen Anne, federal maple candle stand with these big spider legs coming off of it. Some nice paintings. Antonio Jacobson, the famous maritime painter. I don't know when this guy ever slept. Antonio Jacobson did so many ship paintings. It's unbelievable. And a very fine New York turret top Chippendale card table right here, estimated at $200,000 to $300,000. Beautiful piece of furniture, though. Wow. All right, but over to the Chinese stuff, you have this export family, Chinese export settee, came from the Talbot family collection. It was made around 1820 or 1830, but very nicely done. If you like Chinese export furniture, this is it. This is a beautifully carved. Look at the shell on the back of that. It's very reminiscent, actually, to the giant marble carvings that were at the Summer Palace. This pattern, they carved this in white marble, about the size of buses on that property. And here the ends, nice looking natural wear. Doesn't look like the wood has been disturbed or refinished. It looks like it's in beautiful condition. Nice natural patina. I would, if you do go after something like this, realize you do need to have cushions made for it, because if you sit on this, your butt will go right through this mesh in pretty short order. You need to have some cushions on here to distribute your weight a little bit. It's pretty strong material, but I like me, if I sat on this, my bony backside would go right through it. But just get some nice silk damask done, maybe in yellow or blue. Look great. And onto this, the Chinese school painting, the Western Hongs, estimated at $20,000 to $30,000. This was sold to the current owner, apparently by Martin Gregory in London, who's a very prominent Chinese export painting dealer. It was sold to them in the 1990s. It had been restored or relined anyway. This is how whenever you see one of these cardboard things on the back, you know it's been relined. And they do it with China trade paintings, not because the painting was severely damaged, but because of the problem of the oils lifting and craquelure on these paintings. You see all these broad crackles. And if they don't reline them and tend to them, the paint will start chipping off. So they reline them, and they're done. They're good. They don't have to do anything else. But this one is very finely painted. Really fine detail all the way through. The figures, the boats, all of it, very detailed. And this is what the best of these export paintings look like. And there are your hongs. All right, and there's the American Hong right there in the center with the American flag on it. And that will drive up the price significantly, or they have in the past. As soon as they see that American flag, the Americana buyers jump into it. Because the Brits don't pay as much for this stuff for some reason. I don't know why, when it has the British flag on it. Any rate, the Chinese export porcelain Fitzhugh, orange Fitzhugh dinner service nicely done. And they call this sometimes a part dinner service because there's one or two pieces missing. It doesn't mean that a lot of it's missing, but if it's missing a cup or a saucer or something to go in the teapot, maybe the teapot lid is missing, who knows. Here it looks pretty complete. I'm not sure what it is they're missing. Estimated at $20,000 to $30,000. It was made, most likely this was made around 1815 to 1830, I would guess. The quality of the work is excellent on it. They provided one image of one plate for a close-up examination, so you can get a good sense of how well it was done. It has a monogram on it, it looks like WR. So if your initials are WR, you might want to go after this. It's already monogrammed for you. Nice looking. There's the back, pretty typical for one of these. And $20,000 to $30,000. But if you dice out how many pieces are in this collection, in this lot, it's going to seem pretty inexpensive. A couple of $100 per piece. All right, and then over to this. One of the big guns in the sale is this, estimated at $100,000 to $150,000. A pair of Qinlong dragoon vases, as they were often known, or soldier vases, because of these big vases began to be called soldier vases when after the collection was started by Augustus the Strong, who bought enormous Kangxi vases for his own collection. And since then, every time they come up with a big pair of covered vases or jars, they call them soldier vases, and if they're Kangxi, they call them dragoon vases sometimes. But this is what that's all about. These are beautiful. These are really well done. Billy Sargent, according to the notes, wrote on these in the book on a collection that was put together over in Europe, and these are fantastic. The way the birds are drawn is really great. And this Amari decoration at the top, this is a pattern you more typically see on Kangxi Amari wares. Here they brought this pattern back during the Qinlong era to do the top of the jars like this. And then you have these very cute fu lines tucked in at the top. Nice color, beautifully done. And these are big, 49 inches in height. These are quite large. William Sargent wrote, Chinese. These are in the Chinese porcelain and the Condi collection in Madrid, Spain, 2014, pages 106 and 107. So if you have that book, go look them up. They'll be in there. Billy now works for Bonhams, actually, but he was the curator of the Peabody Essex Museum for many years after Crosby Forbes retired. At any rate, there you have them, $100,000 to $150,000. But boy, are they magnificent. And then this is something from the J.P. Morgan collection. It's been in private hands ever since. I think this was in the Tibor collection at one point, and then later in the Hudroff collection. So it's got a long history of ownership in great collections, and that has an effect. That has value. And they have it all listed out at the bottom. Garland, Morgan collection. It went to an American private collection. Anonymous sale at Christie's in 2003. And then in the Hudroff family collection that was sold at Christie's in 2009. All right. So you want to look into that. That's a good looking plate. It measures 13 and a half inches in diameter, and this is a famous pattern. There's a couple of books out there that have this same plate on the cover because it's such a classic European scene of the people with the wigs and the costumes and so forth. And it's interesting because they're sitting on and surrounding themselves with Chinese furniture and Chinese tables and so forth. And here you have a fellow playing the flute, and looks like she's playing a zither, and this guy's got a lute? I'm not up on my instruments, but at any rate, there it is. Looks like they over-sharpened it a little bit in Photoshop before they published it, but that's okay. Estimated at $5,000 to $7,000, but rare. All right, also rare is this, a pair of biscuit figures, Kangxi period of, let's see, how tall are these? 12 inches tall. These are pretty big. These were sold last time they went through. They were at Christie's in 1997. They don't have any. It's just an anonymous. No names attached, but beautiful quality. Estimated at $6,000 to $8,000, or about $3,000, $3,500 each, which I think is very reasonable. These are very nice quality. And then the pair of quillins with the boys riding on the backs. These are around 11 inches tall, Kangxi period, $15,000 to $25,000. This is pretty rare. Obviously, this is a rare form when you have children riding creatures in these things. The standing figures are more common. You do see them more often. The standing figures get rare when they get very tall. Some of them are 18, 20 inches. Those can get pretty pricey. But these riding figures with this beautiful aubergine on the quillin, the fish scales on the quillin, beautiful color aubergine, and then nice greens, reds, and a nice soft yellow to sort of lift the whole thing up. And I love the facial expression on this kid. He's a cute kid, and he looks shocked too. They both do. At any rate, $15,000 to $25,000 if you're interested. And then over here to this, $10,000 to $15,000, a pair of Qinlong mythical beasts with underglazed red decoration. This is not overglazed. That's all underglazed copper red decoration. Beautifully done. Very, very finely painted. This is a real trick. This is something you didn't see much prior to the Qinlong period, seeing them able to brush paint and do fur in underglazed red where it didn't misfire or turn green or have something go horribly wrong with it during the firing process. By then they were getting pretty good at controlling kiln temperatures. So this fired off just fine. It came out beautifully. And these are rare. The Qinlong mythical beast, 7¼ inches high, or 18. A little bit again. You have this sort of strange. I think 18.4 is centimeters. So 7¼ inches or 18.4 centimeters in height. So there you are. These are estimated at $10,000 to $15,000. That's not a crazy price for these. These are quite rare and unusual. They provide lots of photographs. There's 10 photographs in here actually. So you can really get a good look at them. And if you like Chinese animal figures, you might want to save some pictures of these because these are very cute. And as I said, they're estimated at $10,000 to $15,000. And then over to this is the last thing we'll talk about is this. And this is a heck of a beautiful jar. Yongchen period, very big. This thing is 35½ inches tall. It's almost 3 feet tall, with this spectacular fu line on the top, beautiful enamels. The enamels on this thing are striking because the red is so strong, the yellow is so strong, and you have this snow white background. And I love how they did. They have this ruyi head shaped device running around the collar with flowers in each one of them. But each of these large roux head devices is formed by putting together other roux heads to create it, which is a really neat trick. Very clever. Very, very clever idea. And you have the white enameled heron on here, and lots of good color. Very beautiful greens and yellows at the bottom and all that. It's just a great looking pot. Estimated just $10,000 to $15,000, which to me seems awfully low. I have to assume by that estimate it's got extensive restoration or something. There's no condition report with it, so I would, if you're interested in that, I would call and get it. Because if there's nothing wrong with this and it hasn't had significant amounts of restoration, that estimate is crazy low. That's a really, really inexpensive estimate for a piece this size that's that well painted. This is beautifully painted. The quality of the paint is excellent. But it was in the Condé collection. Again, Bill Sargent wrote about it, and there's no other provenance. But published pieces are pretty desirable, and the estimate on this I think is very modest. So check that out. All right. And as I said at the beginning, there's not a heck of a lot going on right now. Next week, I think it's going to get pretty busy. But for right now, everything is up on the sites. We did the video yesterday on the Ming Yuan and what happened to the stuff and the story behind what really went on versus the story that the Brits told after it was over, and they were Lord Elgin got caught with his finger in the cookie jar and how he sort of tried to fib his way out of it. And we'll be doing some videos next week. We got a couple of interesting topics that we've been working on, and we'll get those out. So have a great New Year's. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't so far. We're up to almost 19,000 subscribers, which is pretty amazing. And I hope you're all well and you had a great Christmas. All right. Thanks for watching, and see you all next week when we get back from our trip. All right. Bye-bye.